All right, good evening, Midwest Star Wars fanatics, and welcome to Midwest Star Wars Fanatics Live. It is me, Star Wars Nerd 574, and my co-host Travis over here, and we are going to talk about the last episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi. But before we get into that, I want to thank the hashtag show and our sponsors, TRG Toys and Collectibles. Thank you so much for sponsoring us, TRG Toys. Make sure you check them out, trgtoys.com, for all your collectible needs. Without any more waiting. We're going to talk some Obi-Wan, and what a way to wrap up the final episode and the season. We'll talk a little bit more about if we want to see a second season or not, but we'll get into that a little bit later in the show. Also, for everybody's watching, let us know. Drop a comment, any questions, your thoughts. We want to hear from you. And with that, so Travis, we just got probably one of the best Disney Star Wars stories since Rogue One. I mean, I really think that Obi-Wan was there. I know there's a lot of people that did not like it, and it was like, again, one of those 50-50 where it was happy. But I love the emotional attachment this story had, and what it meant to me as a Star Wars fan. But before we dig deep into it, I mean, the series overall, I mean, what do you think, man? I mean, was it worth it? Was it worth the wait?
Yeah, I mean, I think before it came out, we've talked about this several times. I think we were both in the same boat of didn't necessarily need more story in this particular area with Obi-Wan. We had a lot of Obi-Wan in the Clone Wars cartoon, had a lot of Obi-Wan in the prequels. Didn't really need it, but we both agreed, hey, if when it comes out, we'll probably watch it. Kind of cautiously optimistic that it would be good.
Yeah.
I guess we were a little bit wrong in that regard. That we should have been more on board with it, because it did turn out to be an excellent series. And I think it really benefited from having 6 episodes, so it had a pretty tight story start to finish, and didn't really have any of those big filler type episodes we're used to with the Mandalorian or Book of Boba Fett, where there's like 1 or 2 episodes where it's like nothing really happens.
Yeah,
it's just sets up the finale. So this one start to finish was good. I can nitpick a few things. Maybe we'll get into a couple of those later on, but overall, yeah, definitely an excellent series start to finish and a well told story.
Yeah, it was just one of those that had, to me, it was emotional. I mean, there was a lot of moments that tied in, to the first 3 episodes, and it just really kind of just took you back in time a little bit and made you appreciate, as a Star Wars fan, what we're getting right now. I know, again, like I said, there's some people out there that just completely hated this, and some that loved it, and there's some right in the middle. So, but obviously you can't make everybody happy, but at the same time, it was a good series. So, I mean, the big thing we're just going to talk about, and we're just going to jump right into what we've been waiting for. We got a little bit taste of it when Obi-Wan was kind of rehoming in his Jedi skills and very reluctant to use that lightsaber. But we finally got the huge matchup that we've been waiting for. And that, of course, is Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. Just talking about an emotional, just wow, seeing them go at it. And we'll get more into this fight here, but I mean, just overall, I mean, just how cool was this kind of see, Obi-Wan kind of starting as, looked like he was like, a new Jedi, because he kind of turned himself off from the Force and everything. And how cool was to see Obi-Wan to get his swag back?
Yeah, I mean, definitely by this point, we started to see it a little bit in the previous episode with, holding the water back, in the underground tunnel in the Inquisitor, fortress there. So yeah, he finally sort of let the Force, back in fully here. And yeah, it was a great fight, very emotional. A lot of, I think, really poignant lines of dialogue, which we'll probably get into. But yeah, this was kind of the buildup we were all waiting for. We got a little tease of it with Vader really just beating him down on the one planet and dragging him through the fire and everything, kind of get his little taste of revenge from Mustafar. But yeah, this one was right up there, top sort of lightsaber duels and fights, I think. And I think it lived up to the very high expectations everybody had for it.
And it kind of what I really loved about this whole setup, and again, I've talked about this in a few episodes, was the comic books. If you are reading the Vader series right now, it tied in together very well, and you'll know what I mean, at the end when the Emperor is talking to Vader. But just seeing this fight and just seeing, Obi-Wan still wasn't ready for this. He, the emotions was attached to it. He obviously was out of practice. His lightsaber skills weren't up to par yet. And what I think is great is we actually see Vader get the high ground. He knocks Obi-Wan in the hole, and then we see how powerful Obi-Wan is. And this is what this part was just amazing. Of course, a lot of people, and then again, we get into the Rey Skywalker stuff and the rocks and everything. You know what, people, just enjoy what we have. This was pretty awesome, and I'm not gonna lie, I yelled when this happened. So, I mean, how cool was it? We thought Obi was down for the count down there, and then bam, instead of being on the high ground, he brings the ground to Vader. I mean, how
Right.
cool was this scene?
Yeah, this definitely would caught me off guard, because I legitimately thought the way they were going to kind of explain everything that happens between now and A New Hope, and Vader not going and looking for Obi-Wan, and the line of dialogue like, "Oh, I kind of didn't expect you to still be around," was when Vader, crushed him in that hole, and Vader would actually just left, and then Obi-Wan, survives that. So I was kind of, I guess, shocked, like when he comes out and then goes and chases down Vader for, a little bit extra of the fight. But yeah, no, this was a really cool moment for sure. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen Obi-Wan really use the Force this powerfully.
Yeah.
So that's one thing this series has done, I think, compared to, the prequels, obviously the original trilogy, because they didn't have the ability to really do this level of, special effects and CGI and all that sort of stuff. So they couldn't really do this. But, Vader, we talked about last time, pulling the ship down out of the sky and crushing it was a really, like, wow, Vader's really powerful. And this is kind of Obi-Wan's moment to be like, hey, Obi-Wan is just as powerful as well with using the Force. Instead of pulling down ships, he's lifting the ground up and throwing it at Vader.
Yeah, it's just an unreal scene. I loved it, and it's just, I mean, just seeing what we could have got with more Obi-Wan, if Qui-Gon didn't have to bring Anakin along this whole thing. But, it was just unreal. Like, I honestly was speechless. Like, I am now just thinking about it. It was just one of those scenes that you'll never forget as a Star Wars fan. And just kind of going from that, it was just unreal. Now, we're going to go to something else. We're going to kind of jump before we get to the next part of this fight here. But real quick, I want to say, Paul, Kevin, Matt, Jeremiah, thank you for watching. We enjoy having you guys here. You guys have any questions or comments, throw them up there and let us know what you think about this series. So now we know that Obi-Wan is fighting Vader right now. And unfortunately, due to some technical difficulties, the host tonight forgot to add some pictures into the PowerPoint. But we're going to talk a little bit about Third Sister and Beru and Uncle Owen. So we also get her looking for Luke. Now, this stuff, a lot of people did not like this arc, but I like where it went because it was something different. This was a youngling who pretty much blamed Anakin and Obi-Wan for the way she is now. So she wanted revenge on Obi-Wan, but she also wanted more revenge on Vader, which failed. And obviously she got stabbed, and somehow, again, like, if you're on the dark side, you can survive getting stabbed in the stomach. It's pretty cool power, I guess. It pays to be on the dark side every once in a while.
Right. Yeah.
But she goes in there. I mean, the Lars Homestead was strapped. I mean, they were ready to go. Like, I was kind of shocked with that. It makes me wonder what kind of battle went down when they took on the stormtroopers in The New Hope. But I mean, what did you think about that? And do you think we needed that in that story, or do you think it was kind of a little bit overkill?
Yeah, that particular part of the story, I mean, the Reva story arc, from the overall concept of it, I had no issues with. I know a lot of people from the beginning were like, we didn't need Third Sister, I didn't like the character, blah, blah, blah. Had absolutely no issue with that at all. And I was very, we talked about last time, I was very interested to see what was going to happen with her knowing about Luke on Tatooine. Like, how's this going to play in with everything without really breaking the existing lore and canon? So I was glad to see that they did not really screw anything up too much with that. Everything can kind of be explained away with, well, she knew that Luke Skywalker was Anakin's, kid, but she went off somewhere. Maybe she'll show up in future things. We don't know. But I think the only thing that in this particular episode, this suffered from was everybody was so focused on the Vader Obi-Wan confrontation that this just felt kind of like, well, we've got to do something with her, so we'll kind of shoehorn it in here, and it didn't get really too much of a focus, almost kind of an afterthought. But you know, I mean, I think overall it kind of completed her story arc. I honestly expected her to die in this series. I was
So
like, I didn't think she would survive. So with the one episode she got stabbed, I was like, well, that's it. This makes sense. So her being still alive definitely opens up a lot of, I guess, opportunity for this character going forward, but
yeah,
also a lot of, well, let's be careful now because we're really messing with a time
yeah.
period that you can't meddle with too much, because how does it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense if you
I mean,
change too much.
we already know what's going to happen with Obi-Wan in the future. So obviously, you know, there's some things there. Real
Right.
quick, Scott, thanks for watching, and I'm doing good, man. I appreciate the comments there. But yeah, I felt that since it was only 6 episodes, I feel like with her arc in there in that last episode, it did feel forced.
Mhm.
Don't get me wrong, I like the storyline. I like the way that everything went, especially her redemption. But we'll talk about that here in a minute because we're not really at that part yet. But you know, it was just unreal. But now we're going to flash back again, or flash forward, or flash to, I don't know what they call it in the film business, but we're going back to the Obi-Wan Darth Vader fight. And
Mhm.
honestly, this next part and this next picture I bring up probably was one of the coolest Star Wars moments I have seen in a long time. And the fight between Obi-Wan, when after he showed the power and, you know, damaged, you know, Vader. And but what was really awesome about this, how his voice kept going back from Anakin
Mhm.
to Vader, Anakin to Vader. Like, they nailed this scene, and it was just unreal. Talking about, you know, the chills of combining everything into one moment here. And also the Easter egg too, kind of throwing back to, you know, when Ahsoka realized that this was Anakin. And I think this was Obi-Wan's moment too, when he actually saw Anakin's face, you know, and apologize. And, you know, and we'll get into that line too a little bit here, where Anakin says he's the one, or Vader said he's the one that killed Anakin.
Mhm.
So in a certain point of view. But I mean, how amazing was this scene?
Yeah, I mean, this was probably the most powerful scene, I think, probably without real question, in the entire series. You know, we commented on some previous moments, whether it was, you know, the moment when Obi-Wan learns that Anakin's still alive, when Obi-Wan kind of starts to mention how Leia reminds him of somebody he knew. There's kind of those sort of emotional moments you can see, sort of the inner turmoil that Obi-Wan's still dealing with. But here it was totally like all of us were in that same moment, like,
Yeah,
wow, we remember Anakin. We remember that face, that voice. And for Obi-Wan to kind of be confronted with it, it's not just a man behind a mask. That's you were my brother, Anakin, you know,
yeah,
inside this mask here. And you can just see like the kind of the regret and the just everything that Obi-Wan's going through when he's, you know, sees Anakin in this position, and still I think has that hope that maybe there's, you know, Anakin still in there somewhere.
yeah. It was just,
And like you said too, the voice back and forth, the visual of, like, you know, the red coming through the helmet with the lightsaber glow. It was just all just
yeah.
very well shot and executed for sure.
You know, it was just unreal. I mean, just the way, I mean, it was just so glad that, you know, we still had James Earl Jones' voice, you know, and everything just worked out so perfect with that scene. That
Hmm.
probably was probably one of the most emotional scenes out there. And then on top of that, you know, when, you know, Obi-Wan apologized to Anakin, and Anakin was like, "No, I'm not your failure. I killed Anakin." You know, and that was the moment that Anakin Skywalker no longer existed. So I mean, we got to see that moment. So in a way, Obi-Wan was right, you know, when he told Luke that his father was killed by Darth Vader, because I mean, technically he
Right.
was. So, but yeah, just unreal. Just by far, probably other than the original trilogy, growing up with it, this is probably one of the most memorable moments, at least for me, that's going to stick with me for a while with Star Wars. It was
Hmm.
just, it was that good to me.
Yeah, and
So
the great thing too with that fight is that's kind of like the fight that Obi-Wan and Vader could have had in A New Hope if it was made now, not back in the 1970s with
No, just
Alec Guinness and David. The fencing style dueling that they had in place then. So it was good to kind of finally see sort of the fans what they wanted with it, a full powered Obi-Wan and Vader squaring off.
Yeah. So, kudos, Star Wars. Thank you. We all love this. It was definitely a great moment. I couldn't get enough of it here. So going back again to Third Sister. Now let's talk about Riva a little bit. Riva, I can't even say her name now. A little bit. She's tracking down. Obviously, Brew and Uncle Owen, like they give her a fight, man. But obviously they have. I mean, she's struggling a little bit. She was just stabbed in the stomach.
Right, yeah.
So I'll give her the benefit of the doubt there. But like I said, I mean, Aunt Beru pulling out weapons out of the walls and everything, ready to go. And I think I was like, "What? Have you always had these?" It was like he had that kind of look, in his face. But I mean, what did you think about that scene? Hunting down Luke, and then with her not being able. But my question with this scene, and anyone out here who's watching, I would like to know your opinion on this. It was like that, even though she said she laid with the younglings when Anakin killed them, it never referred to her being actually stabbed. So did Anakin actually stab her as a youngling? Is this like her second time? What? I was kind of confused with that a little bit, because when you watch the flashback, she like flashes back as a kid and gets stabbed, and then it goes, and then she couldn't kill Luke because of the flashbacks. I mean, what do you think on that? Was
I guess kind of the way I took that flashback was, although I mean, you would think if it was like a regular fight against regular Jedi, it'd be kind of frantic and kind of these lightsabers and I've been hit, but it was unarmed children, so it'd been pretty easy to know. So all I could think of is like maybe she was hit and then just fell over and like played dead, but she didn't actually get wounded too much. Because I mean, they didn't really talk about if she was actually hurt or whatever. They kind of just didn't probably want to get into too many details and try to bring up too many questions on how to explain away that. But
I mean, Alex, I think I'm going to cut you off there real quick, Travis. Alex, I'm going to get into your question a little bit, because this is going to lead me into the comics. So we'll get back to that question there, but I wanted to pop it up there for everyone to see it there. We'll get back to that, and I'll bring it back up again as well. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
But no, that's fine. Yeah, now I think the Riva, story arc, I was a little surprised. It's gonna sound super nitpicky, but I'll critique things here a little bit, because that's just what we're here doing. So I was a little surprised, because it seemed like when Obi-Wan talked with her and was like, "Hey, I will help you get Anakin," Vader, and then because it seemed like all of her hatred was towards Anakin. So I don't know what she honestly hoped to achieve by going after Luke, who obviously Vader has no attachment to Luke. So it was kind of a weird, I didn't really get her thought process as a character, like why she would care so much, but it was what they had to do, I guess, to give her like a redemption moment of I couldn't bring myself to kill Luke. And I was like, well, of course you probably couldn't. Although I guess I will say she spent the last 10 years probably, full hate, dark side sort of thing. So that's still kind of, building up
like
within
a Darth
her.
Maul type, with one thing.
Yeah. So even though she's not necessarily bad, she's been killing a lot of people for quite a while. So I guess she thought that killing Luke was somehow going to make her feel better. So, but the character overall, again, I had no issues with the ending of it with her. I wish I maybe could have been something a little different, but overall, still no major complaints.
Yeah, there was a few things out there with that, and it's kind of funny when you think about that, with her going after Luke, and and then with her, like, obviously I think she was trying to also draw Obi-Wan back, but just think, somewhere out there in the galaxy, Darth Maul was looking for him at the same time. So I think that's kind of funny to think about, but that'll be another story, another talk about, and everything there. So we get that battle. Finally Vader, Obi-Wan's like, enough, I beat you down. I'm not going to kill you. It's true, my friend's dead. He knows. And and he just walks away knowing that he just kicked Vader's butt again. Which obviously makes sense again for the people who want to go hop to A New Hope. Now I'm the master, and obviously he's, he still realizes that he was an apprentice when he fought, and he wasn't ready yet. Because obviously we had those flashbacks showing him, as Anakin, and Obi-Wan knew his moves. He knew what was going to go down. So I thought it was pretty interesting, with that. So he goes away. Obi-Wan comes back, and that's when again we see, Reva get her redemption and everything there. So then we finish up because obviously, we can't finish up the season without, little Leia. So talk about just a heart-touching scene, going into this. And again, a lot of people saying, "Oh, we had this," and I'm one of those ones that like, okay, do we have to keep bringing a kid into every Star Wars story?
Right.
But the way they connected this with Padme, and and then also, oh my gosh, I just forgot her name now. That sacrificed herself when he gave her the holster.
Tala.
Tala, thank you. But just sitting there and just tying this, it was just so emotional, especially when he starts talking about Padme, and then he even talks about Anakin as her father, but he even says, "I can't tell you." Talk about tugging at the emotional strings again. They did a good job at this, and it wasn't like it was forced into the show. I mean, it was natural the way everything goes. I mean, what are your thoughts? Am I crazy on this, or was it?
No, that was it was a good kind of wrap up thing for Leia. You see her, putting on the holster, and her adopted parents are like, okay, we're just gonna kind of, she is who she is. We're not gonna be able to change her into like the princess we think from like, the first time we saw her climbing the trees and running around and getting kidnapped by Flea and everything. So it's kind of full circle to where, she's back on Alderaan and, here's who she is. But yeah, no, I mean, that line of Obi-Wan talking about Padme and kind of the qualities that Leia got from her, and then the qualities that she got from Anakin, her father, was, definitely a very touching, sort of, like you said, pull on the heartstrings sort of a moment for all of us as the viewers watching it. It's like, yep, we fell in love with those characters too back in the prequel series. We had 3, multiple movies of them, and if you've watched the Clone Wars animated series, 7 more seasons of Anakin and Padme and all this sort of stuff. So you really grow attached to them. So it's like, kind of just hitting you back in the heart. Like, yep, I remember.
Yeah, she was perfect for this role. She actually drew me in as a fan because the way she played young Leia, and you can see how she had her attitude as she got, older, because we see again a younger Leia in Star Wars Rebels, and then, not younger, a little bit older Leia in Star Wars Rebels, and obviously it just keeps going from there.
Now, of course, the one question I have though now is, so Obi-Wan brought back Lola. So now the unanswered question is, what happens to Lola between now and, A New Hope? Yeah. She's traded in Lola for R2 and C-3PO, I guess.
I mean, I think that's a good trade. I don't know, but so definitely, a lot of fun things to pop up there. But they did really good tying stuff in, and and you can really nitpick and say, well, I don't know if this fits canon and blah blah blah. And I really think it depends on how in a certain point of view. I mean, Star Wars has come out with a few books with a certain point of view, and it seems to be a theory. And this is the great thing, everybody. And I know that this might be shocking to some people, but a lot of Star Wars can be what you want it to be because there's no answers. Imagine that. Have fun with it, guys. That's the best thing. But what really kind of gets me, so I really think I need to start having my own little funny segment here. But a lot of you guys might remember this. What really grinds my gears. So obviously I need to put my face there instead of Peter Griffin. So we're going to talk a little bit about and I actually skipped something because this is how bad this is bothering me because I want to get in there. We'll get back into grinding my gears for a minute in a second here. But first thing let's talk about this quick scene here real quick. Hello there. So we finally get it after 6 episodes. We finally get the hello there. And I like it because to me, and I haven't seen any confirmation on this, but did they mix kind of Alice Guinness's voice in with that hello there? Because that didn't sound to me. It sounded like, unless it was just my head going to A New Hope right away. But when he said that, meeting Luke, I was kind of like, that didn't sound like McGregor. I don't know.
Yeah, he probably because I mean, odds are it's probably McGregor, but probably really like try to mimic sort of the cadence and the fluctuation in tone to try to replicate it as much as possible. It definitely sounded different than the hello there, General Kenobi, with
Yeah.
Grievous back in episode 3. But yeah, no, I mean, it was kind of that moment. Everybody kind of thought it was going to happen when there was a moment where I think he was on that planet with the truck or
with
whatever.
the Empire transport.
Yeah, he said hello. It was like, oh, you were so close, because I guess they saved it. They saved it for the bitter end, and I don't think. I mean, the writers knew what they were doing, that they were going to hold on to this line. I mean, heck, they made the T-shirt at Celebration with "Hello there" on them, if I remember correctly. So that's Star Wars, Disney, Lucasfilm. They're all in on sort of the joke with that one, so they definitely saved it, kept us anticipating it.
Yeah, so I mean, he was pretty cocky but he could be cocky now, Alex. I mean, he just beat Vader, the actual Darth Vader this time. So I don't know. So, but yeah, it was great to see that scene and go in there and little Luke. Now we know how he got his ship that he was playing with and everything, because obviously we were wondering, because when Uncle Owen gave it back to Obi-Wan, we're like, wait a minute, that's the ship that
right.
Going from there. So going back to what grinds my gears. All right, we're popping this one up again. So like I said, I need to replace my face with Peter Griffin here. So a lot of you guys who know and watch this show and has talked to me and listened to me and stuff, we talk a lot about Qui-Gon. So sorry, we gave you guys plenty of time to watch it. We're gonna spoil it for you, but we get Qui-Gon's Force Ghost. Now, I, for one, was not excited as a lot of people were, and I'm sorry, guys, if that upsets you or whatever. Is because now we just threw away a whole arc of the Clone Wars, and it bugs me. And usually the canon stuff doesn't bug me too much because it's kind of close enough where you can kind of go. But now Star Wars needs to fix this, because number one, if you go back, and I'll make sure I put the article link in here, it's even referenced in, I believe, in one of the Star Wars encyclopedias, and the show that Qui-Gon did not finish his training, so he could not present himself as a Force Ghost. And before somebody else jumps in here and tells me real quick, well, he did in one of the episodes. Yes, he did show up as a Force Ghost in the Mortis episodes, but that was because the father, the daughter, and the brother were playing mind tricks, and the Force works differently on the planet Mortis. So it was not truly Qui-Gon. It was them messing with Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka at that time. So what were your thoughts? I mean, like I said, we knew this was coming. I knew it was coming, but I just was hoping it wouldn't. I was hoping he'd be those little sparkly things. So number one, we need to know, how did he finish his training in the afterlife? Was there something else? Or did Obi-Wan discover something that was able to make him finish like that? That's what's got me. Trust me, I love seeing Qui-Gon back, but this scene got me. So let's hear it from you, Travis. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we've talked about this several times, that we knew Qui-Gon was going to show up, and I guess because we knew it was going to show up, and it's Liam Neeson, and for the probably the majority of Star Wars fans, just people that enjoy Star Wars, who watch, they watch the movies and they watch the TV shows. They've never watched the animated series and never read the comics, read any of the books, anything like that, would have probably been really confused, because every time they've seen any type of Force afterlife, it's always been the blue glowy from Obi-Wan for the first time, Yoda, Anakin at the end, and now Qui-Gon. So it makes sense for I guess, completionist sort of fans like the rest of us are, where we know. So, I mean, I guess it could be easily explained away at some point in the future. It's been, I guess, 10 years since he was the floaty orb version of Force Ghost. I expect maybe in a comic. I mean, I think there actually is an Obi-Wan comic. I don't know if it's out now or coming out, but there'll probably be some sort of book, comic, something that explains how this, came to be. But yeah, as soon as it happened, I was like, oh man, Greg, this is one of Greg's pet peeves. I was like, I kind of expect, like you said, I kind of expected it to happen though, but it was kind of a good moment, I guess, to see, Liam Neeson back as Qui-Gon.
Yeah, it was a good moment for that. I mean, don't get me wrong. It was nice to see him back in there, and then he kind of gives, like, well, I've always been here, you just weren't looking. They're kind of like, it was very interesting. That whole thing was, I don't know. As you can tell, it kind of bugs me a little bit because that story arc with Yoda going through the training,
Mm-hmm.
and then with Qui-Gon, being the little fluttery lights instead, saying, I never completed my training, so I cannot present myself as a being. So it was definitely interesting how they went to that, and everything there. So kudos having Qui-Gon back again. Don't get me wrong, I love seeing him back in that role, but at the same time, it really just was like that. I don't know. I was hoping maybe he would hear his voice and say, all right, Obi-Wan, come here for your next part or something, or just kind of,
Mm-hmm.
and like where Alex said in that message earlier, we did hear his voice in The Rise of Skywalker,
Oh,
when
right.
Rey was here and all, like that made sense to me because, obviously we can do that. But there are a few things that, like, Kylo Ren, vanishing off into the Force and stuff like that. There's a lot of things that it didn't surprise me that we got this moment. So,
Mm-hmm.
overall though, great series. I loved
Yeah.
I loved it. I'm not disappointed. Like I said, those little things, like those are, and I just knocked over some stuff. Sorry, folks. Those little things just aren't that big to make me go, oh my god, I just cannot watch this, because I will watch
Mm-hmm.
this series again. I will probably watch this more than the Book of Boba Fett. Let's just put it that way, because at least Obi-Wan was in every episode. So that was a nice thing about that. But I mean, I don't know. We'll get off the Qui-Gon thing because I could talk about this, for a long time and kind of go for there. But the next question, is, do we really need more? There's talks. People want a second season, and okay. And before everybody also jumps on my case, I know I said I didn't want this season either until I started watching it. But are we going to get a second season now with him with Luke? Or can we just be done? Like, and that's what do we need to kind of move on from the Obi-Wan story? What do you think? And everybody out there, I want to know what you think as well. So, Travis, I mean, should we be done with this?
Probably. And it's because I just don't know what else I guess it's going to sound very similar, I think, to the same sort of points we brought up before this ever came out. Was I don't know what more there is to tell. I mean, we already have the story arc in Rebels that kind of fills in some of the additional stuff he was doing closer to A New Hope time frame.
Yeah.
I don't think he can interact too much with Luke, because Luke, again, in A New Hope was like, Ben Kenobi, you think he means old? I mean, like, he almost
Yeah.
acts like he's heard of him, but he's not super familiar with him, which
Yep.
makes sense. As of right now, it still makes sense because he's, 10 years old, and, 8 years, 9 years, however many years later, he maybe has a vague memory of meeting some old guy that gave him that, Skyhopper toy, but maybe, he can't keep interacting with him like constantly because it just won't make sense.
Yep.
And, there's some stuff in the comics that we talked about. We thought maybe like the Black Chrysanthemum kidnapping Uncle Owen thing might show up because it introduced that character in Book of Boba Fett. So maybe there's some small things they could do if they want to do a second season of Obi-Wan going around Tatooine, helping people not directly related to Luke somehow. I don't see him going off world again on some sort of adventure like he did in this, because the only thing that would take him off world would be kidnapping Leia a second time. I just don't know what they could do. And there's obviously a lot of really smart and creative people sitting in these rooms that can probably come up with something that would be good.
Yeah.
But, I'm all for, let's do some different characters. I
Yeah.
put the article out last week. There's a rumor that potentially a Cal Kestis focused Disney Plus series, which I think could be really good. It's in the same sort of time period. They could potentially pull in Reva. They could potentially pull in Roken, O'Shea Jackson Jr.'s character, who's still out there. They introduce some additional characters to the lore and canon that could make appearances elsewhere, whether it's in games or a series with somebody else. But I think it's time to let Obi-Wan just go and do his training with Qui-Gon and lead into A New Hope. I don't think I just don't. No, I just think it's good. Sometimes doing a sequel doesn't have to happen. Just let it stand on its own. It was really good 6 episodes. Don't milk it too dry. And
I'm on the same boat. I mean, obviously we know what happens. Spoiler, everybody. Vader finally defeats him. Well, kind of. So there you go. We've done season 2 already. It's done. But with the cowl, that's interesting too. I mean, obviously we know the new Fallen Order games getting ready to come out. So I think personally that they're going to keep him as a video game character. I don't know if we're going to see that crossover that everybody wants to see, because we're kind of getting his story in the video games. And now that these games are canon, I think it's interesting that they're really kind of pushing that. So, we'll see from there as well. But I mean, it's hard to tell what we're going to get. We're getting all kinds of different stories. I saw something out there that Book of Boba Fett season 2 is getting ready to start shooting, which if it does, great. They got a lot of stuff they can improve on, I think, from that series. So you might actually have a better series than what the first season was. But I do want to see some other stories. We do have a lot out there. We got Ahsoka coming up. We got, Andor, which I think is going to be a great series. And then you got, the Tales of the Jedi. We're going to see a version of Dooku that we have never seen before. So we're starting to get into different story and time frames, and that's what I'm very excited about. Cody, hey, how's it going tonight? Thank you for tuning in. But just to me, I'm ready to close the book on Obi-Wan. I love Obi-Wan to death. I love the stories that we got. But like you said, we're going to milk, the cow dry. I think we just finished off its last heat. There's no more, no more milking. Let's go on.
I think it was, and I think it's a good, if at some point Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan has to have sort of his swan song. And, you got John Williams back for the Obi-Wan theme. Yeah. We got Ewan McGregor back, and it was a great story arc, very emotional. And I just think if you keep going back to it, it kind of diminishes, I think, sort of like how powerful this particular series was. It's just time, I think, time to let it go. And like you said, there's plenty of other characters out there. Mandalorian's been introducing tons of characters. Book of Boba Fett, if they do a second season of that, which hopefully they do, they can improve on it. If you got my guy still alive here, Marshall Cobb Vanth out there, I'd love to see him come back in some way, shape, or form. So, I mean, there's definitely so many more stories they could tell and new people they could get into. And the other thing I always get worried about is when you start playing in this time period, the closer it gets to A New Hope, the more danger and question there is, like, okay, well, how do you explain this? Like, you do this thing, well, why does nobody know about that in A New Hope? Or why doesn't Luke say anything about this? Or why is Uncle Owen now mad when it seemed like they kind of made up at the end of this? You start really getting these almost like paradoxical sort of conundrums on figuring out how do we tell a story without messing up all the canon, because we're going back to the same area over and over and over.
Yeah. So going with that, I'm going back to Alex's comment here that he made earlier. My question is, when Vader tells Obi-Wan that I'm not your failure, you didn't kill Anakin, I did. Do you think it was to get under his skin or to ease his pain of Obi-Wan? So one thing we talked about before, and if you read the comics, you realize that this is a very fragile time for Vader. He keeps going. He's having a hard time making decisions because he's still finding part of, Anakin in him. And if you read the comics, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, especially at the end when, Palpatine, or Sidious, whichever you want to call him, asks Vader if his mind's clear on this stuff. And if he's really like, you can tell, and this takes us right into the comics, and it shows you how Vader even gets more powerful because of the stuff that Sidious does to him, and literally is trying to kill him like throughout the series, and it's just unreal. He gifts him Padme's ship like just things to see how committed Vader is and really pushing those buttons. So I thought that was pretty cool how they kind of line that up, and you kind of
Mhm.
see, Vader's still conflicted, and obviously we know he is at the end. He finally realizes, and he throws, Sidious over the edge, and we get to see, Vader again with his helmet off, this time all the way off. And just it's neat how it's setting up for the comics. So if you guys haven't read the comics, the Vader comics, it's great. It gives you a lot more detail, and it also gives you why we see Vader the way he was in Rogue One, and those things. So that's my bit on the Vader comments and everything there. So going into the episode 2 thing, or do we need a season 2? We kind of already got a season 2 in a way, and that's in Rebels. Alex made a comment about Maul looking, he'd be in the next one. Well, we already know Maul's looking for him, because he's back in hiding, back in hibernation. No one else knows where Obi-Wan's at, and takes Ezra and Maul to unlock the secrets of the holocron to find him. So again, let's move on. Let's give us the new stories that are coming out, and see what we're going from there. I mean, that's my 2 cents on there. And trust me, I love Star Wars as much as the next person, but I'm ready. I'm at a time where I'm ready for some new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and of course I'll throw out the caveat: if they do make a season 2, I'm sure I will watch it. I'm sure I'll still enjoy it, because again, it'll be Ewan McGregor coming back. But just to kind of almost protect the integrity to a degree of the story that was told here and how powerful it was. Because I mean, there obviously there can't be, I don't think, an Obi-Wan Vader showdown again before A New Hope. So all the things that really made this season special and this series special so far is been done, and you really can't. There's nowhere to go but down. I guess you can't really outdo what they did already.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what we get. The Ahsoka series is going to be interesting, because we know, obviously from Celebration and from all you guys, I got to see the little teasers.
True.
But we're in for a heck of a story, I think, with that, and you're going to get your Rebel crew and everybody else kind of involved with that. So a lot of good stuff, people. Trust me, if you did not go to Celebration and you don't know what's coming, there's a lot of great content coming. We've got to see some of it. The Bad Batch, I'm actually very excited for this second season. Again, the Tales of the Jedi is going to be interesting. Andor, you name it. We've got so much Star Wars content. But my question, I know we talked this before, for those who are still tuned in to us here tonight, when do you think we're going to see that movie? Obviously, we found out that there's no movie right now in the works. They're talked about and on the project board, but nothing filming, nothing like. Are we going to go for 3 or 4 more years with no actual movie to hit the theaters?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm thinking, that I believe the thought is that Taiki Waititi, I always say his name wrong, so if that's totally wrong, you know what I'm talking about, the guy that does Thor. If his movie's up next, obviously I guess so Thor's finished, that comes out next weekend, so I guess he's hopefully had some time to maybe start working on script, pre-production, storyboard sort of stuff. But if that's not filming currently and officially in production, which it sounds like it's not, that means you're looking at maybe late this year, early next year to start, full production. It's a Star Wars movie. It's going to be tons of, special effects and, all the imaging and post-production, which is going to take months and months and months. I mean, we're looking at 2024, probably, if I had to guess, would be the next feature film to have, could coincide potentially with the next Celebration convention back in the US. And maybe they've got this all timed out and they're, masters of marketing, which obviously Disney is. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be another 2 years, could be 2.5 if they try to stick with their usual, like, sort of late in the year, December release window they were doing there for a while. So, but thankfully, like we talked about, we've got plenty of Bad Batch and Ahsoka and Mando
Yeah.
and Boba Fett. We've got tons of Star Wars content to hold us over, but it's going to be a while, I think, until there's an actual movie that comes out.
And I mean, if you look at the time lengths of these episodes, we're getting more than a movie with these series. So I mean, we are getting more, but it's not Netflix like where you're, you could binge watch it all in one night. You have to wait for it, and that's one thing that I like about it is it's you have to wait and you get that anticipation each week and stuff like that. So.
Well, we even know that Andor, I think, could be 12 episodes long, which would be the longest, episodes count for any of them so far. So, but yeah, like you said, like each one of these is almost kind of like a movie. It's just broken up into 6 or 8 or however many chunks to make it, a TV series. So it's still really high production content. It's quality content. It's not like it's low budget because it's in TV instead of a feature film. So, but yeah, I think it's gonna be a long wait, and hopefully we start getting some information. The next Celebration convention is April of next year over in London. So they'll probably announce something there, maybe have some more concrete information. Hopefully by that point, if not sooner, as far as that next movie goes.
Yeah, unfortunately, I will not be attending that celebration, so I'm gonna have to live through whoever goes to that. Hopefully I'll make it to the next one afterwards. I know next year I'll be doing kind of a light load with conventions, but it'll be fun to watch from home and seeing what's going on there as well. Speaking of conventions, there are some good conventions coming up. Obviously next weekend you got Chicago Expo, very strong with the Mandalorian, and then you got cast. You've got Ashley Eckstein's going to be there, Anthony Daniels, Carl Weathers, kind of like that same tour group that's been there. So if you missed them, or we're looking to get them a little bit cheaper for autograph prices, this is your chance. C2E2 has Billy D. Williams, which is pretty big, because he's probably not going to be doing many more conventions, in the future. So it'll be interesting, if you haven't got a Billy D. autograph yet, this is your time. And then a few other people as well. So, Cincinnati Comic-Con's coming up. And then you've got in October, New York as well. So a lot of great conventions coming up. Rhode Island Comic Con, which is very Star Wars heavy every year. Not in the Midwest, but I know that one's pretty big for a lot of people to travel to as well. So, hopefully we'll see you at some of the conventions. I know I will be at Chicago this weekend or next weekend, and then C2E2. I do know I'm locked in for those. I don't know about Cincinnati yet. But other than that, I'm excited about what we're getting. A lot of great stuff heading our way. I know I've been trying to keep Travis busy with some writing and stuff. Convention stuff's coming up, so we'll be cranking out some stuff there. And then obviously, guys, pick up the comics, read them if you're looking for stuff during this downtime on there. With that, some little final announcements here. Tomorrow, I will be announcing the official silent auction for our Mission 22. I finally got some dates locked in that I'm going to do for that. So be ready for that. Also tomorrow, I will announce the Christmas in July and what date that will be for Ronald McDonald House. And we'll kind of go from there with everything. The Amazon wish list will be live tomorrow as well for those who can't donate in person. So I'm very excited again doing these things. This is what makes this group so amazing is how we care and help, charities that are out there. Other than that, Travis, do you have anything else for tonight?
No, just thanks everybody for tuning in. This has been a nice run here of several weeks of Obi-Wan for us all to watch. I think, again, I'm glad that our group especially, I don't see a lot of complaints. You go out there to some of the other parts, the darker corners of the internet, and you see a lot of complaints, a lot of nitpicking about things. And, and like you said, it's okay to have opinions and discuss things. Like we can, there's certain things Greg likes, certain things that I like and don't like, so it's okay to have differences of opinions, but everybody's been civil about it. And I think we're all very happy that this series was made. So definitely looking forward to what comes next.
And for those who are still watching, and if you guys watch this, it'll be interesting because I'm going to throw a little contest out here tonight. I have some swag from some conventions that I went to this past year, and I'm going to give this swag away. But in order to get this swag, you must pay attention to my background. My background changes quite a bit My collector's ADD kicks in, and then I move things around. If you guys notice, I have a theme going on behind me somewhere. And in that theme, there's one thing in that area. If you really look, and I know it's hard to tell because it's kind of far away, but if you really look, there's one thing that really does not belong in that area. The first person that can point that out and know what I'm talking about, I will give this swag prize to. So we'll see if anybody catches it. Again, kind of look at the areas, look what's in those areas. So some things I kind of blend in, some things I don't, but there's one thing that's really obvious that does not go with everything else in that area. So if you're watching, take a look. The first person who messages me in comments will win the swag I have, and I'll get that sent out to them. But other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching and listening to us talk about, one of the greatest franchises in the world, and that's Star Wars. I'm excited about it. If you're going to conventions, be safe out there, be smart. We want to see you nice and healthy for the next one. And like always, until next time, may the Force be with you.